Hello everyone, Airmax here. In this video, I'm going to discuss my feedback towards the Linux challenge I started almost like 3 weeks ago. So if you are not aware of what I was doing, I decided to create a Linux Mint series of video for YouTube. In those videos, I kind of like explain why you should switch from Windows to Linux and why you should use Linux Mint if you are transitioning from the Windows world to the world of Linux. I've been doing my work for the last 3 weeks on this distribution, Linux Mint. I've been using it on a daily basis, so I created content, I stream video game, I made all those videos. I'm actually on Linux Mint right now, and the experience has been awesome. But I still want to make some, have a little discussion with you guys because not everything was perfect. Let's get into it. Before we jump into it, I want to show you my desktop because on my previous video, it was, like at the beginning of my experience with Linux Mint, and obviously nothing was really customized. And now I customize everything. I feel really comfortable with Cinnamon. Cinnamon is really refreshing. We'll get into that, but it's super solid. So this is how it look like. Really like it. So at the bottom, I put my existing application, and it's really easy for me to focus on the middle here. On the left, I have all my different workspace right there. I have 4 of them, but I have 3 screens, so it's really easy for me to switch from one to another. It's super neat. So I'm switching right now. Nothing crazy if you think about it, but the experience itself has been awesome. So let's get into the pro of Linux Mint overall. Linux Mint is the distribution if you want to switch from Windows. I've been super comfortable in my usage. If you have the reflex from Windows, you won't be lost in this distro. And it's really because of the Cinnamon desktop environment, which is kind of like an updated version of the Windows environment, at least from my perspective. On top of that, Linux Mint is really easy to install. If you are lost in the installation, I make a full tutorial about it, a full video. Don't hesitate to go back to my channel and check those videos which are in this playlist. It's not hard at all. I would say it's easier than Windows. So again, another huge pro for Linux Mint here. Something which was really enjoyable was the fact that if you own an Nvidia card, which can be problematic on certain distro, on Linux Mint, it's a non-issue at all. You just install, go onto the driver selection, and you have your Nvidia driver installed right off the bat. So it's a big plus if you are an Nvidia GPU owner. Like that's crazy. That's definitively a plus. Another big win for Linux Mint is the software manager. Again, if you're a beginner, you just go there, selection your application. It's seamless. It's really, really enjoyable. So again, big plus for Linux Mint. I have nothing negative to say about this part. When you think about Cinnamon itself, I do believe it's my second best desktop environment after spending 3 weeks on it. On number 1, KDE is above. I will explain why after. Then I will put Cinnamon, and then I will put XFCE. If you like, like managing Windows like that. I'm not talking about tiling experience. I'm just talking about Windows floating in your desktop. It's super solid, guys. Like Cinnamon really, really like surprised me. I was not expecting that from it. On top of that, if you are a beginner, you will feel that customizing everything on Cinnamon is super easy. You don't get lost in the option compared to KDE, which has so many options, but which could be really hard for a beginner. Another point I want to mention for Cinnamon is the fact the performance within gaming is just astonishing. It is not as good as KDE, but I would say it's around 3 to 5% under the performance of KDE, which is not that big. So if you have, a low spec type of computer, I would say stay on KDE or even XFCE. And I'm not sure like XFCE right now is as good as KDE in terms of performance. I didn't use it for more than 7 months now, but KDE is really above when it comes to gaming, but Cinnamon is not that far behind. Another detail I really appreciated with Cinnamon is the fact they have this little option that disables the compositor to give you more performance. So in KDE, you don't have this option. You have to create script or do, the old good like shortcut when you launch a game to deactivate everything. But on Cinnamon, it's just like clack. You click the option and you are good to go. It does work. When it comes to working, Linux Mint is incredibly well prepared. You will find all the tools, all the application to be performant. It will be relatively easy to find all of those and to install them. On top of that, if you are a content creator and you are using DaVinci Resolve, that was the biggest surprise from all of them. It was so good to install. I was like baffled by how easy it was to install DaVinci Resolve on this operating system. Just like kudos to the team, it was awesome. So you still have to enter like command line, but man, what a walk in the park, man. Like everything worked out of the bat. The GPU was recognized and fully functional, my Nvidia card. And on top of that, the sound was recognized too. Everything was great. You just install the application, go through it, and you are ready to edit. So again, Linux Mint, awesome. And the latest point I want to mention is that you see with my 4 workspace, my 12 screen, me gaming, encoding, recording, editing on the same computer, I was not able to make it crash. I had some time where I was really pushing it to the limit. I would have like this little message popping off saying like, hey, this application is struggling. Do you want to kill it or do you want to wait? And I will always press wait and boom. After a few seconds, it will come back. I never had any crash on Linux Mint. So this was really, really impressive. I do believe I'm a power user when it comes to working on my computer. And I'm telling you, this is solid. So if you have tasks which are like super important, you don't want them to crash, you want to have a working environment really solid, Linux Mint will really fulfill this. And also like for the upgrade, nothing broke in those 3 weeks. So obviously it's not long enough. I would have loved to test it in an environment where I have to make a huge upgrade between like version itself of Linux Mint, but I don't have the patience to stay there, because I want to switch to another distribution. And you're going to be asking like, why? Like if you have all those nice things to say about Linux Mint, why do you want to switch? I want to switch because most of the points I mentioned are already directed for newcomer to Linux. I would say if you have a little bit of experience on Linux, you will see that Linux Mint reach certain limit, and I discovered them while I was using it. So let's talk about the cons when it comes to Linux Mint. So as I mentioned, we are doing a challenge, and the challenge on my hand, I didn't have any issue related to the hardware, but some of my friends who were doing the challenge, they told me they had a huge issue. The first one is related to the new hardware. So let's say you have an AMD RX 7900 XTX. Well, you're gonna have some trouble with Linux Mint, and for a simple reason. The kernel, which is delivered with Linux Mint, is not recent enough to support certain type of hardware. So I'm mentioning this graphic card, but I heard about certain gamepad which were just not recognized by Linux Mint. So what you had to do was to, for example, like upgrade the kernel or add the specific firmware for this graphic card. And so then it's not a good experience for a beginner because it's complicated. And it could be a big drawback if you expect this type of distribution to work out of the box. And that's one of the limitations, is the fact that, of course, it's stable, but it's so stable that some of the old, newer hardware just won't work out of the box. And then you have to to go through the hassle to fix it. And well, maybe you want to install a distribution where you don't have to do that. So something to really think about. I'm pretty sure it's going to be solved in the future, but that's a big no-go depending on the hardware you have. The second issue that some of the users did encounter, me included, is the upgrade of the Linux driver. So the Linux driver by default on Linux Mint are pretty old. And if you want a game, you want to make sure that you have the latest driver. For example, like Starfield just got out. Even the latest driver, they don't work. With Starfield, you have to downgrade them or you have to wait for the next upgrade from Nvidia to be able to play the game. My point is like when the new driver are going to be released, if the team of Nvidia Mint is not fast enough to push the update, well, you're going to be in a situation where you still cannot play the game even if the driver are available. They are just not available for your distribution. So there is a solution for that, which is called PPA. What you do, you install this PPA. It's kind of like a new source for your package manager to download the latest version of this specific driver. The issue related to that is that I did install it, it's relatively easy. But when you upgrade the driver through this PPA, you will have a black screen and you have to hard reboot your machine. Man, like this is so stupid. It's a bug. But when I went to the bug section of the PPA, like it's not mentioned here. I went to the Linux Mint forum. The team of Linux Mint is aware of it, but nothing has been done yet. And for the last 3 weeks, each time there were an update, because I think we had like 2 updates in between of the driver. I know it's crazy, but we had 2 updates. And each time I wanted to update them, upgrade them exactly, well, I had a black screen. And it's kind of annoying, really annoying. It could be the source of you totally breaking your update and your operating system. If let's say like you want to push the reset button while the upgrade is still working on the background, I'm telling you, like it's not going to work very well. So that's a big issue to me, and this kind of drives me crazy, thinking that it's easier to install the Nvidia driver on Arch than on Linux Mint. Like, think about it, this is just insane. Another little issues that kind of annoy me was the fact that when I wanted to upgrade my kernel, compile my own kernel using the TKG script, it took so much time compared to, for example, like compiling through Arch. And it was not the compiling time itself. I would say the compiling time was the same, but when the driver is being installed through the packet manager, it just takes way more time than when I use Arch. So I don't have the technical background to explain why, but I would say the compilation time itself was the same. But when it comes to like installing and generating, for example, the image, the Initra MFS, sorry for the pronunciation, image, or just like, you know, setting up the whole thing, installing it on the system, not compiling it, it was way too long, like way too long. And I'm thinking, well, this is fun, but because I'm upgrading my kernel like crazy, like that's what I like to do, it's just tapping on my nerve. For most of you guys, it won't be a deal breaker, but for me, it's just frustrating. I think overall, the package manager from Ubuntu Debian is really solid, but it's a little bit on the slow side versus pacman. My 2 cents, okay. Another issue I encountered was the idle crash issue. I know a lot of users on the Linux Mint forum mentioned that, and I had it too. So what happened is like when your system go to sleep, exactly like when my monitor go to sleep because my system doesn't go to sleep on paper, I would have my machine do a hard reboot. I never had that before, just with Linux Mint. So I had to go through the control panel, reset all the settings and do them one by one manually. And then this issue disappeared. But I had the issue for like 1 day. I will go do something else, come back on my computer, and I will have like my whole system reset. I was like, what the heck? And apparently it's a known bug, I guess, Now let's talk about the sound issue I encountered. So again, this is relative to my hardware. I have a mixer with 32 channel, I think. Yeah, 32 or 36. Anyways, this channel requires a wireplumber installed. It's a package, which is a modular session policy manager for pipewire. So Linux Mint come installed with pipewire, but it doesn't come with wireplumber, which means like some of the functionality of my mixer will not be accessible without this module. I installed it, then everything worked, but it took me some time to understand what was the reason why I couldn't use my mixer to its maximum of its capabilities, and it was kind of frustrated to say the least. I don't think that delivering the distribution with wireplumber will be a big no-go, but I don't know why they are not doing it. And from a new user perspective, if you have no idea of what I'm talking about, there is a high chance you're going to be pretty frustrated. Another issue I encountered related to the sound. I'm going to demonstrate it to you guys. So let's say I'm watching a YouTube video like this dude. Okay, I want to start and play it on another device. So let me explain. If I want this video to always be played on another device there, I can't do it. I just can't do it. I can't selection the output per application with the sound interface that come with Cinnamon and Linux Mint. For example, with Arch, you have something called purview control. You can launch and you will be like, okay, this Firefox Windows will be always assigned to the music device. And there I will put the game device. I will assign, like, for example, Apex Legends. What is not something you can do here, or maybe I didn't understand how to do that, but it didn't work out of the box. What I had to do was to install purview control, pulse audio volume control, and then I have the Firefox audio stream here, and I can choose on which device I want to play it. But again, for a user which is brand new to Linux, is going to think that the capabilities of Linux are restrained, but in fact they are not. It's just because the software, like packages, which are like helping to achieve this goal, are just not present in the distribution. And this is a problem, right? Because Linux Mint for me is really designated for a newcomer. This should be delivered. Like we are, I think like 2,500 packages out of the box. Just add this, like it's not going to change anything. Now, another issue related to Ubuntu, and this one for me is really a game-breaking one, is the fact that the packages on Ubuntu, they are really old. Okay, like they're super old. And the only alternative to go towards the packages which are like bleeding edge is to use PPA. But not of all the applications I'm using have PPA. That's a problem for me, because I would like all my application to have the bleeding edge version if I want to, and I just can't do it. So if I remember correctly, like Kitty, this one here, doesn't have any PPA. So which means that if I want to upgrade my terminal emulator, I'm gonna have to update it manually from time to time. That's a pain. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to compile it manually, find the source, etc., etc. And it's just one example. Imagine if I have like 20 applications like that where I have to do that. It's just not good for me, not good enough. So that's an issue. The other issue related to that is that sometime you will have the application available through flatpak. So for example, let's talk about Gimp. Gimp from Ubuntu is not the latest version. You have to install a PPA. Now let's say you don't want to install this PPA and you want to do it as a flatpak. You could do that, but then now you are adding flatpak. When I discovered really the use of flatpak by using Linux Mint, because I'm not a big fan of flatpak, to be honest, I thought it was super useful because you just go there, click on a button, install everything for you, all the dependency, everything. But then a lot of other, I would say, issue pop up. Let me explain. I use something called OpenRGB. OpenRGB work out of the box with flatpak. Let me show you something. What I like to do is to start OpenRGB each time my computer starts. Because what happens is, like, if I have some type of like energy cut, my whole PC is resetted. Like, you got the word. My LED settings are gonna disappear. So you want this application to start at logging all the time. Like that, it starts and it reapplies the setting I want for making sure my nice red RGB are still on. But guess what? Because it's in a container, it can't start itself. It doesn't work this way. You can click on that or not, it will never start. What you have to do is like start it manually with a little script you can create. But then I could have done it, okay? Like, but then it kind of like remove the easiness of use from the Flatpak. Because you see, you gain time by just installing this application through Flatpak. But now you have a huge drawback on the other side because you need to create your own script. You need to go through all this hassle. You shouldn't have to if you install this normally, right? You just had to click this button and boom, it will start at login. So for me, it's a big drawback because Flatpak applications are really great, but in really like small case scenario. And to come back to Gimp. Gimp is great on Flatpak. The issue is that the GTK theme will be applied by default to Gimp if they are the one included with Mint. If you have, like me, a Dracula here, and you try to applicate it through the GTK transition between Flatpak and your actual theme, it's not going to work. Don't ask me why. I did everything well. I gave the permission for Gimp to have access to my GTK theme, etc., etc. I've done everything well. I double-checked. It just doesn't work. Dude, this is really frustrating because when you open Gimp, again, you want Gimp to look like that. You see, it looks pretty slick. I couldn't get that by using the Flatpak version. It sucks. So if you come from Windows and you have to deal with that, you're like, whoa, that's a lot to ingest. Again, this distribution is for me the best out of the box for someone who wants to transition. When you start to learn how everything works, you're gonna hit a wall. And this wall is not really related to the Linux Mint team, to be fair. Why? Like, it's kind of. But like, I don't understand why they decided to use Ubuntu as a base. My opinion, they should have gone with even Debian to have something which is more like rolling edge. When I say rolling edge, it's like something which gives the user the opportunity to switch easily between what they consider stable to something way less stable. That's the issue I have personally with the distro, but it's just my perspective. I would say if you are a beginner, man, this distro is the only way. It's the only way because outside of what I said, which are really particular to my hardware and my usage, the performance have been awesome and the system has been incredibly stable. Like, I couldn't crash it and I've been tweaking it to the next level. So it's just overall like really good. When it comes to the challenge, I decided with my buddies who are also doing this challenge, like, we should stop it. We should stop it because the thing is just too stable. Man, like, it's just too stable. Like, I wouldn't be able to crash it or to find, you know, like this particular, I would say, hole in which I would have to go to make it crash. It just works. So I could do this challenge for the next 2 years. I will be a little bit upset, obviously, because this is not really how I want to use my computer. But in terms of like work, performance in game, performance when I edit video, performance when I record video, like I'm recording the video right now. This is just awesome. I'm using Linux Mint and it works. Now it's just not tailorable enough for me. I want to have this ability to go like, you know, behind it and really tweak the system the way I want. But it's just my, I would say, like advanced user perspective. But for a newcomer, a newbie, a beginner, this is the way. And I've shown you, like, it looks pretty good. You can customize it as much as you want. It's really darn good. So the challenge is done for me. I will say goodbye to Linux Mint. The next one we decided to do with my buddies is OpenSUSE Tumbleweed. I never used it and I want to jump into it. So after editing this video, I'm going to be erasing all the data here and start on Tumbleweed. That's going to be the next challenge. So guys, if you want to hear about this one, please don't forget to subscribe, give a like. I will really appreciate it. If you like what I do, please support me by becoming a member on YouTube or on Patreon, or by using the Amazon link affiliation there, or sending me a PayPal, whatever you want to do to support me in this adventure. Guys, I really thank you for watching, and I see you in the next one. Bisous, bisous.